thing you need to do is try to get these bolts out. So got this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then back there 6, and then there's one back there too. You want to remove this bolt so that you can get this heat shield off, and then you'll have access to the other bolts. All right, I got all the nuts taken off. They're fairly easy to take off. I just blasted them with some of this. So the next task is to take these 2 nuts off so we can release the header, and that is connected to this pipe that goes down that way to the other side. So once you get those 2 bolts off, you'll be able to take off the header. Just maneuver it and it'll come out. The next bolts we need to tackle are these ones on the driver's side. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then there's one on top. And then there's these 2. There's this one, and then there's one on top. I got the 3 nuts off. Now I need to get to the top one. I just used this angled socket, and then use the 17mm socket to reach it with an extension, and then you can access the top nut. I just kind of wedged it in here, and that's how you can get to the nut from here. All right, we're now on the driver's side. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 nuts to take off. All right, so we're gonna unclamp the catalytic converter off the exhaust, and these nuts are 14mm. So to release the muffler, you're gonna unbolt these 2 bolts. They're 10mm. And there's these 2 bolts. I already removed them. And then these 2 bolts, all 10mm. In order to get the muffler off, you gotta take off the exhaust brackets. So there's these right here, and then there's this right here, and this one is the 17mm bolt. So here it is. So there's 2 of them. This bracket went over here. So there's 3 bolts. All right, finally got the exhaust muffler off and the catalytic converter. Got to get this header out, and then that cross pipe. So we're going to use the supplied nuts and washers to bolt down the header. Here's the studs that we're going to be using. So after removing the gaskets, I started putting the studs in. So I started putting some anti-seize on it and then screwing it into the manifold. So I'm not going to take off the old studs. Some people might say that's not the right thing to do, but I don't feel like taking them out. And they actually look kind of new. So the header without the O2 sensor housing is the one that goes on the passenger side. So as you can see, I already mounted it, and now I need to just bolt it in. And in order to get it in, I had to remove my alternator. It made it easier to slide it in. All right, I got the header all bolted in. I added some additional studs with nuts, but you don't have to install all the studs. As long as you get at least 2, should be fine. This heat shield right here was hard to install, but what I had to do is, see this spacer? I guess this header is a little thicker, so I had to grind down this in order for the bolt to fit. If you could find a longer bolt, it would work, but I can't find another bolt. So what I did was I grinded down this spacer a little bit, and then I was able to bolt this in. So here's the header gaskets. Just take some scissors So when you're putting the gasket on, make sure the notch is on this side, and then that bottom stub is on the right. I don't know why it's so special to be that way, but that's how it came out. Alright, so time to install the O2 sensor. So this is the one that I got. There's the part number, and I bought this one on Amazon. I think it was like 11 bucks. Put some anti-seize. Alright, next we have to install the catalytic converters. These are the high flow catalytic converters. And then we're going to use this gasket and then these nuts and these bolts to install it. So to take off the crossover pipe, you gotta remove the CV axle, which is this. And I already did it, but the bolts here are a 17-inch socket, so get a deep socket so you can get into it. The only thing that's going to be in the way is like the CV boot, but you can just kind of push it out of the way and then slide it onto the bolt. But I already loosened up all the bolts, but in order for you to get to all of them, you're going to have to turn the wheel. So what you're going to do is jack up the car, turn it to the position that you want, and start loosening up the bolts. And then in order for you to get leverage, you can use the e-brake, or you can lower the tire so that it's locked in place so you can torque it out. All the bolts are already loose, so I should be able to take off the CV axle, and all you have to do is just push it out, and then you'll be able to move it out of the way. And you don't have to take out the bolts, you can just pull them out a little bit. So once you get it unhooked, you can pull it out like this. Once you got the crossover pipe out, you can put all the bolts back on. Just stick them on and then hand tight them. And then while you're under here, might as well do a little bit of cleaning. And then we're gonna torque it down with 30 foot-pounds torque. That's 30. And then do the same for all the other bolts. So the catalytic converter pipes look the same, but they are actually different. When you mount it, it should be going up here, and then it should go straight. So that's where it's going to connect to the muffler. If you mount the other side, it's actually going to turn another way. So make sure it's going straight. Really clean kit. There's the muffler. Another tip. Here's underneath. Looks really good. Well, that's the video. Make sure to subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the future.